Hi, are you looking to buy your next pair of running shoes and you're not really sure what it is that you should buy? You might even be wondering whether or not you pronate, supinate, or if you have a neutral foot position. This video series is perfect for you. In this particular video, I'm going to talk about a neutral foot. So I'm going to talk about what that means and what type of shoes would be ideal for you, and some other things to consider when buying a sneaker. I have other videos, one that's specifically dedicated to supination and one that is dedicated to pronation. And so I'm hoping that with all of this information, it makes diving into the world of the many numbers of sneakers a little bit less stressful. So let's get started with a neutral foot. Now, a neutral foot really means that you don't have a tendency to be too rigid or too flexible. You're basically right down the middle. And in an ideal sense, it means that your foot does exactly anatomically what it should do. There aren't very many of you, so if you are that person, congratulations. Most of us have some tendency to either supinate more than is ideal or pronate more than is ideal, and so we need to purchase shoes that compensate for that. But if you have a neutral foot position, it really means that while you're standing, that you maintain the arch, so that inside arch, and that so you're basically the top part, so this area on your ankle is nicely placed in the center. Now there's obviously a little bit of variant, you could be a little bit one way or the other, but overall you're pretty balanced, right? Your foot, the way that your structure is, everything is exactly how your body was designed to maintain it. And then the nice thing is that it means that you're maintaining that while you're running or while you're squatting or while you're doing all the things in your life that you're doing. So how did your foot hit the ground? Because that's always a nice thing to know. Your foot should naturally hit a little bit on the outside of that heel, so more on the outside than in the middle or the inside. Outside of that heel, it should follow along that pinky toe, and then you should push off with your big toe. So it should be this really nice, easy gait, right? All right, so enough of me playing. But it means that you have a really nice balance of your shock absorption versus your stiffness. It gives you an ideal way of propelling yourself forward and having a good recoil. So while you're running, we're not really worried about too many things with that. The nice thing for you is you really can't mess up what shoe you buy. You can pretty much buy anything you want that isn't specifically for overpronation, supination. So there are all these shoes that are, the low profile, the ones that are minimalistic, running shoes. Those things are going to be perfect for you. So because you're not going to need necessarily the added cushion or the added support. So again, the lower profile shoes, they had some that were freeze, they had some that were just a neutral or like a light shoe. You're not going to be as concerned about whether or not your shoe flexes or bends, because your foot naturally has the stability. So even if your shoe does all sorts of weird things and bends in the middle and is basically a sock with a sole, you're not going to have a problem. Now that's just if we talk about globally. I would still suggest wearing something that has a little bit of cushion just in case. It's always a good idea to try to have as much shock absorption as possible, just because running does generate a lot of force. But just talking about purely a neutral foot, you're not having to worry about that. So because your foot doesn't have a bias either way. So good news. The only other things to consider is just the general makeup of the shoe. You want to make sure that if you're going to go out for the run, that they're the right size. You want to make sure that you have at least one thumb width of distance from the tip of your shoe to your biggest toe or your longest toe. That would be, and this guy, if I straighten poor toe out, you want to make sure that you can get your thumb between that second toe and your shoe, the outside of the shoe. And that's so that when you decelerate, you don't jam your toes into the shoe. You want to make sure that when you take your shoe off that you untie it, so that when you put it back on, you have to retie it. That does a couple things. It makes sure that you don't stretch your shoe out. It also makes sure that you have the amount of stability the shoe is supposed to give you, maximizing the amount of support that it's going to give you. You have a neutral foot, probably not a whole lot of support coming from your shoe if you're buying just a true neutral shoe, but still the principle applies. The other thing to consider is if you're not just wearing really like a rubber sole, if it really is a sneaker that's kind of like this, where it has an insert, that insert is designed to reinflate at after use, right? So as you use it, your foot sinks into it. When your foot is out and it's just nighttime, and it takes about 24 hours for that to fully go back to its original state. Especially the older the shoe, the longer that recovery time is. So if you are going to put a lot of miles on and you've bought a shoe that's similar to that, like where it's actually got a cushion in it, you want to give yourself enough time for it to fully recover, meaning you want to have 2 pairs of shoes. So we've gone over, just doing a little checklist in my head, we've gone over the foot length. Oh, if you're going to do long distances, if you're going to try to run for like marathon lengths, then you need to buy a full half a size larger, just so that you can make sure when your foot swells a little bit that you have enough of that room. So for you, neutral foot, congratulations. I'm just kidding. There's always something, right? But this doesn't seem to be it. It's not as critical for you one way or the other. Obviously, you don't want to go and buy a shoe that is going to cause you to pronate or cause you to supinate. You want to stay with ones that don't have a whole lot of that external support. You're just really looking for shock absorption. Some people, when they have a neutral foot, they prefer the ones that are essentially a sock with just a sole. As long as you can properly absorb impact, there's really no definitive reason not to. But just as an abundance of caution, I always suggest buying something that does have a cushion, so that you can get a little added shock absorption from running, especially for longer distances. Well, I hope that this information is very helpful, and if you need to, there are a couple other videos in the series. But overall, I hope that you have a great time finding your new pair of sneakers.